My spouse is addicted to gambling and has put us in financial ruin. When I first met Emily, she was everything I could ever want in a partner: smart, funny, and full of life. She had this infectious energy that made everyone around her feel at ease, and I fell for her hard. We got married, started building a life together, and for a while, things were good. We were happy. We had dreams, plans for the future, and I thought we were on the same page about everything. I didn't realize then how quickly things could spiral out of control, how one part of our lives could unravel everything. Looking back now, I should have seen the signs. There were moments, subtle at first, where Emily's relationship with money seemed off. It started with little things: overspending on clothes, spontaneous weekend trips we couldn't really afford, lavish gifts that didn't seem necessary. But I chalked it up to her being generous or just enjoying life. I figured we'd have time to save and get serious about our finances later. We were still young, after all. But as time went on, her spending became more erratic, and I started to worry. It wasn't until a couple of years into our marriage that I discovered the truth. Emily had developed a gambling habit. At first, it seemed harmless. She would go to the casino with friends once in a while, play a few hands of blackjack, or spin the roulette wheel. It was just a fun night out, she'd say, and I didn't think much of it. Lots of people gamble from time to time, right? I trusted her. But what I didn't know was how much it had grown beyond just a fun night out. One evening, I noticed something strange. Emily had been gone for hours, saying she was just meeting a friend for dinner. But when I checked the joint account to make sure our bills were covered, I saw a string of withdrawals from the ATM at the casino. Hundreds of dollars gone in a single night. I tried to convince myself it was a mistake, that maybe she had a reason for pulling out that much cash. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. When she got home that night, I confronted her. At first, she was defensive, making excuses, saying it wasn't a big deal, that she had it under control. She said she just got caught up in the excitement, but it wouldn't happen again. She promised. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. So I let it go, thinking it was just a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Over the next few months, things only got worse. Emily started coming home later and later, and more money kept disappearing from our accounts. Whenever I brought it up, she'd get angry, accusing me of not trusting her or of blowing things out of proportion. But I wasn't stupid. I could see what was happening. She was gambling away our money, and no matter how many times she promised to stop, she couldn't. Or she wouldn't. I don't know which was worse. We started missing payments: rent, utilities, credit cards. The debt piled up faster than I could keep track of, and I found myself scrambling to cover the basics. I worked longer hours, took on extra jobs, anything I could to try and keep us afloat. But no matter how hard I worked, it never seemed to be enough. Every time I made progress, Emily would pull us right back down. I tried everything to help her. I suggested therapy, offered to go with her to Gamblers Anonymous meetings, even tried managing the finances on my own to keep her from having access to the money. But none of it worked. She was always one step ahead, always finding a way around whatever limits I put in place. She'd take out loans in her own name, borrow from friends and family behind my back, or max out credit cards I didn't even know she had. The lies were constant. She'd tell me she was going to the grocery store or to run errands, but then I'd find out she'd spent the day at the casino. She'd come home with a smile on her face, acting like everything was fine, like we weren't drowning in debt. But I knew better. I could see the toll it was taking on her too. The late nights, the stress, the guilt that she tried so hard to hide. She was trapped in this cycle, and I didn't know how to pull her out. Then one day, the bottom finally fell out. I was at work when I got a call from our landlord. The rent hadn't been paid in 2 months, and if we didn't come up with the money by the end of the week, we were going to be evicted. I was furious. I had given Emily the rent money, twice, and both times she had assured me she'd taken care of it. But instead of paying the rent, she had gambled it all away. That night, I came home and confronted her again. This time, there was no avoiding it. We were on the verge of losing our home, and I needed answers. I asked her where the money had gone, demanded to know what she had been doing with it. And finally, after months of lies and half-truths, she broke down and told me everything. She had been gambling almost every day. It wasn't just at the casino anymore either. She had gotten into online gambling, poker, sports betting, slot machines, anything she could bet on, she was doing it. She was in deep, thousands of dollars in debt, most of it to loan sharks and high-interest payday loans. I was shocked. I didn't even know how to react. It was worse than I had ever imagined. I asked her why. Why had she kept doing this when she knew it was destroying us? Why couldn't she stop? She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and said, "I don't know. I just can't help it." It was like she was addicted, like she couldn't see the damage she was causing or couldn't stop herself even if she did. At that moment, I realized that no matter how much I loved her, no matter how hard I tried to fix things, I couldn't save her from herself. She was spiraling, and if I didn't do something soon, she was going to take me down with her. That's when I made the hardest decision of my life. I packed a bag and left. I couldn't stay there and watch her destroy everything we had built together. I couldn't keep cleaning up the messes she made, hoping that things would get better, when deep down, I knew they wouldn't. I needed to save myself, even if it meant leaving her behind. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was one of the most painful things I've ever had to do. I loved Emily. I still do. But love wasn't enough to fix this. She needed help. Real help, not the kind I could give her by staying and pretending like we could somehow work through it on our own. After I left, things only got worse for her. Without me there to cover for her, she hit rock bottom fast. She lost the apartment, maxed out every credit card, and ended up with nothing. She called me, begging me to come back, to help her fix it. But I couldn't. I couldn't let her drag me down again. Eventually, she did get help. She went to rehab, started going to therapy, and slowly she began to rebuild her life. But by then, it was too late for us. The trust had been broken, the damage had been done, and I couldn't go back to the way things were. We divorced shortly after that, and while it was heartbreaking, I knew it was the right thing to do. In the months that followed, I had to pick up the pieces of my own life. The debt Emily had racked up was overwhelming, and it took years to pay off what I could. I had to rebuild my credit, start over financially, and learn how to live without the constant stress and chaos that had consumed our lives for so long. It wasn't easy, but over time, I found a way forward. Now, when I look back on everything that happened, it still hurts. I still wonder how things could have been different if she had just been able to stop before it all got out of hand. But I also know that I did everything I could. I loved her. I tried to help her. But in the end, she had to choose to help herself. Addiction is a terrible thing. It doesn't just destroy the person suffering from it, it destroys everyone around them. It takes and takes until there's nothing left. That's what gambling did to my marriage, to my life. It ruined us financially, emotionally, and in the end, it took everything we had. But I survived. I moved on. And while the scars from that time will always be there, they remind me of the strength I found in myself when everything else fell apart.